Well, I'm just thinking about tackling StarWater here and water production in general. Meanwhile, I'm really thirsty. I forgot to bring a drink with me. So this whole gas-powered star theory that I've been pushing for a long time, it kind of it changes the way we look at how water's produced and its effects. Even like the surface of the sun can be quite a bit different because that sun isn't necessarily just producing all that hydrogen and all that helium on its own. You could argue that it's actually pulling, as it pulls that the oxygen from Earth's upper atmosphere, that oxygen is breaking down and creating all the gas and helium and stuff on the surface, which it is, obviously is, because it burns up. So a lot of it maybe burns up in the process of getting there. And I'd have to say that the theory is pretty good and it's an excellent start to it. But I would just explain it differently. As these highly, and I'm not gonna say like, oh, this is what kind of element it is, but let's just say these little particles of mass that are highly energized, when they come into contact with hydrogen or oxygen or what have you, it wants to actually balance out. Okay, so this, and it has essentially its own gravity, right? So when it finds something else that it wants, it attracts it. It wants to balance out. So if you have these little particles that are highly charged meeting this oxygen or meeting hydrogen, what have you, that it's going to attract to it, make bubbles, condense. It's going to condense that water into water, because that's essentially what, there's a fundamental difference on the table of elements for the noble gases and all the gases on that, the what would be the right side of it, I suppose. I don't have it here in front of me. I should have planned this out better. The fundamental difference, those are all going to be the same, but when they fuse or when it's compressed or whatever, it still compresses in a gas. And then you know, the way that mass on the other side combines is that, like, when you have something that fuses together on the far side, if it doesn't have enough fusion, essentially is between that highly energized particles, mass, and the gas itself is what creates that. So when in the fusing process, the stuff that doesn't have enough gas in it is going to be really unstable, which is going to be like, you know, the stuff on the left side or whatever, and, you know, on the right side. And in the middle, so I always talk about, there should be two lines essentially on this, on the table of elements. One being all the noble gases, and one being like the masses that are the most balanced, so to speak, the you know, noble mass. Anyway, so yeah, talking about the StarWater. So yeah, those highly charged particles, when they come here, they just cause the hydrogen that's already here to condense. So I guess that actually kind of debunks StarWater. Condenses the oxygen and mass from Earth's upper atmosphere. It doesn't actually produce it. It's just condensing it to create rain and stuff like that. The way water is actually created is from the Earth's core. Or at the core at any powerful celestial body. And I say powerful because you need to have that compression. You need to have that energy function going on, and you got a kind of the core reacts with the surface. Okay, you got both positive and negative poles all over the place. Usually it's, you know, they're more centered or something like that, but because we've broken it down so much, the northern southern polar vortex is broken down into a whole bunch of other little vortexes, but that's another video for another time. We're talking again about StarWater. So when this mass, so the Earth, or the Earth's core, wants to pull this gas in, all this, pardon me, it create this crude oil that all the trees and plant life create over billions of years, creates a process, because the core is always pulling it in or pushing it out. It gets pretty complicated, but at any point, anyway, so it's pretty complicated to explain, guys, here, unedited and unscripted. So, you know, you got these two poles, and then on the surface, on an above layer, it's going to mix. And as that mass, that crude oil, let's just call it hydrocarbons, as those hydrocarbons get closer to the core of the planet, it breaks down. The electromagnetics actually cause it to break and separate it. So that would separate the hydrogen from the carbon or whatever, and that creates that storing effect. It releases some of it, but it also stores some of it. So you could say, and I'm going out on a limb on this one, you could say that on one end, it stores the carbon, and on the other end, it pushes out that hydrogen. And that hydrogen is what we talked about, where it refuses and puts out that mass. It could even just put out the same kind of things that we're talking about. Sorry, I'm getting bit by mosquitoes out here. So anyway, it breaks that down. So that hydrogen, that gas, the oxygens, they come out of the hydrocarbons there and are released back into the system, which pressurizes the underground rivers and oceans and fills all that stuff up, right? So as we're taking out all that oil, it's removing that. So then the water from the other areas is kind of going into that, and that's why we have like underground erosion and sinkholes and things like that. So that's a start. I can always revisit these later, but you guys will clean it up for me and make some videos later on. Thanks, guys, and have a good night.